Hi, folks, and welcome back to The Original Church. We are deep into Advent, and so Christmas is coming, which means that we have to deal with a question that relates to Christmas. Now, you may have heard or even read that the date on which we celebrate the birth of Christ here in the Western Church, December 25th, you may have heard that this is based on or sort of borrowed from pagan holidays in the Roman world. So, is the date for Christmas based on a pagan holiday? Well, sit tight and I'm going to tell you the story about how the Western Church got its date for Christmas. You see, the early Christians believed that the actual Good Friday, the day on which Jesus actually died on the cross, was the date of March 25th. They believed that was the original Good Friday, and so the original Easter would have been 26th, 27th, right, of March. Now, there is a tradition in rabbinical documents. Now, this is not in the Old Testament, but it's in the writings of the rabbis. There is a tradition that Moses died on his birthday, right? And the rabbis said, well, of course this makes perfect sense because Moses so perfectly fulfilled the will of God in his life that obviously his life would be a perfectly sort of rounded out life, and he died on his birthday. He went out of the world on the same date that he came into the world. Okay, now building on that logic, the early Christians decided that since Jesus is the prophet like Moses and then some, and better than Moses, Jesus didn't just die on his birthday, he died on the day he was conceived. He died on the same date as the date on which the Word became flesh. And so the early Christians decided that if Jesus died on March 25th, then therefore also he was conceived on March 25th. And so March 25th becomes the date of what we call the Annunciation. In the Bible, this is when the angel comes to Mary and says, "You are going to be with child." Not someday soon, but today. And so the Feast of the Annunciation is celebrated on March 25th because that is the date on which the early Christians believed that Jesus was conceived. Now, of course, Jesus, being the Son of God and the perfect Son, he could only have a perfect 9-month pregnancy, right? And so do the math. From March 25th, fast forward 9 months, what do you get? December 25th. And that is why the Western Church celebrates Christmas on December 25th. In fact, in the early church, it seems like most Christians, West and East, were celebrating on December 25th originally. And for sure, the Western Church was doing this by the 3rd century at the latest. And so this is not something that comes about after the legalization of Christianity with Constantine, or after Christianity becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire, or in any kind of Roman attempt to suppress pagan religion. It's none of that. The church did not settle on December 25th for Christmas and then back into the Annunciation. The church had the Annunciation first and then calculated forward to the birth of Christ on December 25th. Now, some in the Eastern Church, well, they had decided that they calculated the original crucifixion of Jesus, the first Good Friday. They thought that had occurred on April 6th. But by the same logic, then, April 6th becomes the conception of Jesus. Fast forward 9 months, and what do you get? January 6th, which is Epiphany, and that's why the Eastern Church tends to celebrate the birth of Jesus on January 6th. Now, you may question the rabbinic tradition of, the perfect prophet dying on the date he comes into the world. And you may question the leap of logic that Jesus must therefore have been conceived on March 25th or on April 6th. But the point is that Christmas, whether celebrated in the West or the East, is not the result of borrowing a pagan holiday and then baptizing it into Christianity, right? The Christians did not settle on December 25th for any other reason than that they had already figured out the date of Jesus' conception, and they just forwarded 9 months. And so we end up with December 25th in our tradition as the celebration for the birth of Jesus. And while the truth is we don't really know on which day Jesus was born, it's as good a date as any, and it follows from a tradition about the Annunciation and the conception of Jesus. And to be fair, I think that there is good, plausible reasons for believing that March 25th actually was the original Good Friday, the date that Jesus died. Now, of course, I used to tell my students that there's a 1 in 365 chance that Jesus was actually born on December 25th. But to be fair, it's probably actually a little less than that, because as we read in the Gospels, at the time of Jesus' birth, the shepherds were outside with their flocks, and I guess that's unlikely in the winter, although I am not an expert on weather patterns in the Holy Land, so I'll defer to others on that. But the point is that we celebrate Christmas 9 months after the Annunciation, not at all in any connection to any pagan holidays. Now, having said that, it only makes sense that pretty much every culture in the ancient world is going to have a winter solstice holiday. So, of course, the Romans had a winter solstice holiday. They had the celebration of the unconquered sun, the rebirth of the sun. But that sun homonym, that pun, only works in English. It doesn't work in Greek, so it's not a thing in the ancient world. And by the way, if you've heard that the Roman holiday of Saturnalia was somehow the precursor to Christmas, it may actually be the other way around. There is very little evidence, if any, that Saturnalia was ever celebrated before the 3rd century, and in fact some scholars are now saying that Saturnalia was a pagan attempt to steal Christmas away from the Christians. I honestly have not done the homework on that myself, so I'm not sure, but the point is that Christmas is not based on Saturnalia. If anything, it's the other way around. And just as an aside, with Easter, it is even less possible that the date for the holiday was in any way based on a pagan holiday, because there is a long tradition, it's all documented, of the debates in the early church over how to calculate the date for Easter. And as I'm sure you know, we still don't all celebrate Easter on the same date either, East and West. But the point is that one way of calculating it has to do with a solar calendar. Another way of calculating it has to do with a lunar calendar. It's all about how to base it off of the date for Passover. So Easter is based on Passover, not on any pagan holiday, right? Of course, again, ancient pagan cultures are going to have a holiday around springtime, but that has nothing to do with Easter. So, was the date for Christmas based on some pagan holiday? Absolutely not. That is a myth perpetuated by people for whom it sounds good because, for whatever reasons, and it has no basis in history. The whole point of Christmas is to celebrate the birth of the Son of God, and of course it should be connected to the Annunciation when he was conceived, because it's all about this. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. That's what it's all about. I hope you and your family have a beautiful, blessed, and Merry Christmas. Hey, thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I really appreciate that. Please share this video with your friends, and please join me in the Original Church community on locals.com. Don't forget that if you join the Original Church community on locals.com, you can join me each week for a live, in-depth, chronological Bible study. It's live streamed every Saturday, but you can watch it later if you're not available. So join me for that, and I'll see you there. I hope to see you there. I hope to see you there, and I'll see you there.